So a lot of folks come through our practice and they're dealing with ADHD and don't even know it. Even more than that, they have signs and symptoms of ADHD that get masked as desirable qualities or like positive personality traits. And so they end up flying under the radar, not getting the help they need, which would really benefit them. And in today's video, that's exactly what I want to talk about. What are some of these signs of ADHD that fly under the radar? And just to introduce myself or ourselves, we're a practice called PRGRS Therapy. We are located in New York City, but we do serve clients across the state. This is where we're licensed, and one of our specialties is ADHD. So we like to make videos like this to educate people, whether they have ADHD or not, about ADHD, because we feel like knowledge is the starting point. So yeah, we're gonna keep this raw and real. We're gonna dive right in. And the first thing we have to talk about, though, is kind of this concept that when people read about mental health disorders, whether it be on the internet or whatever the case may be, I often see that people think they have something because they resonate with one symptom or attribute of a mental health issue. Right? So for example, if you're reading about anxiety, right, and you're reading a place that, has all the symptoms listed out or the criteria from the DSM, and you resonate with one of them, some people go, oh my gosh, I might have that, right? Or you read the criteria for something like bipolar disorder, and you have one symptom, or you resonate with one, oh my gosh, I might have that. And we see this happening a lot. So I really want to make it clear that just because we resonate with a symptom or something does not mean we actually have it. And it's important for me also to let you know this video is not for diagnosing. No one should ever watch this video and then say, oh, I have ADHD. This is for educational purposes only. And any sort of diagnosing should really happen with a professional, right? But of course, we're curious and we do want to do research on our own. And that's why I'm hoping videos like this will help you. So then how do we know, though, like if it's just simply, kind of a normal, quote unquote, normal thing that I'm dealing with, right, versus something I should seek professional help for? And one really easy way to determine that is if the issue is deteriorating quality of life. Let me just give you an example from anxiety. Let's say we have someone who's dealing with anxiety and they're able to tell me, well, before a big meeting, I usually get really anxious and nervous. It's hard for me to eat, but it does help me stay prepared and get there on time. And then once it's over, I feel much better, and it goes away, and I don't really have anxiety after that. This would make sense, given that there's a big work meeting and things like that. The anxiety is actually helping them get prepared. And then I might have someone else who says, I have anxiety. It's every day, no matter what's happening. It doesn't go away. I'm not able to focus at work or function at work. And it just doesn't seem to get better. And I'm really struggling to manage at work. My work is deteriorating. My quality of work is deteriorating. I'm not able to focus at home. We would then want to question, is this more than just kind of a normal episode of anxiety, right? And so we might dig a little bit deeper. Same is true for ADHD. So I say this because you might resonate with some of the things I'm talking about. It does not mean you have ADHD. It's when these symptoms or signs deteriorate quality of life that we want to seek help or professional support or opinions, that kind of thing. So let's dive right in. We're not going to go crazy with any introductions here. So what are these different things that we see flying under the radar? Now, it's important to know we work with a lot of professionals in New York City, right? So people who are software engineers and lawyers and accountants and consultants, and it doesn't really matter, but it's typically a group of people who are working, right? And that is one of the reasons why some of these fly under the radar, right? Because these are what I'm going to tell you are attributes that can be really positive in a workplace, but they can be under the radar. So what's the first one? We often see people with ADHD dealing with a lot of energy, right? And even drive. So like drive to get things done, drive to accomplish things. And now I know there's that stereotypical understanding of ADHD and energy, typically in little boys. Right? And I'm not necessarily talking about that where it's like off the wall, can't stop moving or shaking, that kind of thing. But a lot of our adult clients with ADHD, they've learned over time to kind of channel their energies into different passions. So you might get a client who is really passionate about what they do. Let's say it's a software engineer. And they could code for hours and hours and hours, right? They really love it. They can code for hours. It's a passion of theirs. And if you're an employer, right, you're hiring a software engineer to work for you, who wouldn't love a software engineer who's just passionate about coding and can do it for hours and hours and hours on end, right? The other thing is the So we have the energy to do those things. And then there's that, again, that drive, that passion. Now, a drive and passion and energy are all really good things. But when this begins to cross the line, and now we're so driven and so passionate about the work that we're doing that our family is suffering, or we don't have time for anything else, and our relationships are not there, or we're not able to sustain relationships, right? Whenever we see that energy and drive start to deteriorate other parts of life, we then can begin to question, is there more going on there? Is it really hard to stop when you start? Is it really hard? Do you feel like this compulsion to do things that you love to do, and it's like tunnel vision once you get in there, right? Now, again, energy and drive, this doesn't mean that we have ADHD, but this is one of those things that from a workplace perspective, right, from an employer, this is great. You might not ever get in trouble at work for being so passionate and driven about the things you love to do, right? At the same time, though, if it is something that is deteriorating qualities of life, we want to dig a little deeper and we want to find out. So we do find that a lot of the adults we work with who are dealing with ADHD have a lot of energy and a lot of drive that has been channeled into something they really love. So that's one thing that we see. Another thing, and this might really surprise you, we see a lot of our adult clients with ADHD, they're really meticulous and organized. Now, I know this kind of goes against the stereotype of thinking about ADHD, you think about chaos and disorganization. But a lot of clients, especially the adults, right, because they have gotten through school, they have, they got jobs typically, the people that we're working with, they tend to have developed coping mechanisms over time to kind of deal with the deficits that ADHD causes. So I see a lot of clients who are really, really organized at work. They're able to keep their meetings really straight. They have like really good organizational systems and spreadsheets and calendars and things like that. And it's really been dialed in, and it's quite impressive. And this is, and it can almost sometimes get into the kind of perfectionism a little bit, right? Where they don't want to miss any details, or everything has to be recorded, everything has to be analyzed, the data is all there. And we'll often see that this is really strong in one area. So maybe it's work because the repercussions for not being organized are there, or whatever area where there are typically consequences, we will see it. And from the outsider's perspective, again, if you're an employer, right, that looks really good. That looks great. They're really organized. They're up to date. Look at that spreadsheet. It's amazing. It can really keep people on task. But again, when this goes overboard and it starts deteriorating quality of life, meaning when we're overly reliant on those things, right? Or if we don't have those things, I can't function, I can't do it, or I become so fixated, that becomes the end goal, is the organizational system versus the actual work that we need to create, right? There's all sorts of issues that can happen when we are overly dependent or overly utilize our organizational systems, or we're overly meticulous. Again, we start blending into perfectionism, something like that. We see this a lot as well in the practice, where people are on the surface very organized, right? And sometimes in other areas of life, there's a lot of chaos. And so this is another thing that flies under the radar. Okay, so I want people just to be aware of that. So that's another one. And that one always surprises me, even though I see it a lot. The next one is creativity, right? Now, this in and of itself is not a sign or a symptom necessarily. But in working with a lot of folks with ADHD, I've noticed that many of them are very creative, and typically beyond, like next level creative, if you will, right? And let's be honest, creativity helps us in almost any domain of life, whether you are a project manager, a software engineer, or a plumber, right? We all have to solve problems, and creativity is how we do that. And so I find that a lot of my clients that are dealing with ADHD are able to problem solve in ways that are quite frankly incredible, right? And at work, that's really great. That's an amazing attribute. But I often see that creativity is also used to procrastinate. So they'll come up with all sorts of ways in which we don't have to work on the task that we need to get done because, we'll have to do this, this, and this. Or we are problem solving in ways that kind of help us avoid the things we know we need to do. Or maybe we've learned to manage getting things done on the last minute because we're creative problem solvers, right? So I see that as well, where the creativity is also used to kind of increase procrastination or avoidance, and be able to do problem solve in such a way that we're able to procrastinate or we're able to avoid and not deal with the severe consequences. Now, eventually that falls apart, right? And people do end up in a hot water of sorts, right? When it comes to procrastination or whatever the case may be. And sometimes it doesn't, but it does eat people up. They don't want to live like that, right? And so again, not that creativity is a sign or symptom of ADHD, but a lot of folks are creative. And then the thing is that I see is that creativity, again, used in such a way that it kind of perpetuates some of the, issues that are going on, procrastination, time management, that kind of thing. They're able to creatively problem solve so that those things don't end up really blowing up. And again, this is a video, it's fairly brief, but those are 3 things that we notice, signs, whatever you want to call them, in people with ADHD, adults in particular with ADHD who are working professionals that fly under the radar, but may be insights into something more. And if you are curious about ADHD or you think that's something you might be dealing with, a really good starting point is a self-screener. Now, again, these self-screeners should never be used as a diagnostic tool in and of itself, but they're a good starting point. And one of them is actually on our website, which is totally free. You can click the link down below and check out the quiz, and it's a good starting point. It's 6 questions or so, and it will let you know whether or not it thinks you should do further testing for ADHD. So go ahead and click the link down below. You can check that out for free. If you're interested in working with us or want to know more about our practice, we would love to speak with you. We always start with a free 15-minute phone consultation. You can schedule that down below. Again, there's a link for that. We'd love to hear from you. We can learn a bit more about what you're looking for, and we can share a bit more about our practice. At the end of the day, though, this video is to help make you more knowledgeable about ADHD. I hope you found this helpful and insightful, and I'll see you in the next video.